name is Ger O'Sullivan. I'm 28, a Castlecolin man and a Limerick man. So I went on my J1, actually flew out on the 28th of May 2012. Ended up flying by myself, but I was part of a big group of 30 people who I know through growing up with and being in secondary school and college with. We chose Myrtle Beach in South Carolina as our destination. I arrived out on the 28th of May to the house on Flag Street that we were all sharing. It was a 10-bed house, but there happened to be 16 of us staying there, so that was a bit of a shock when I arrived. Dropped my bags and straight on the beer with all my friends, and that was my introduction to how I like to describe the Kilkee of America, that is Myrtle Beach.
Would you like to go first? I'll go first. You go first. So I'm Podge, a very good friend of Ger's. Went to school in Castlecolin school, and I suppose been very good friends ever since the age of 5 years of age.
Yeah, so I am Finbar, and I've known Ger since probably before primary school actually.
So we went on the J1 in 2012, so a big group of us all finished up in college, decided to go for the summer. I guess did a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, had good fun while we were over there.
There was a lot of activities to do around. There was nice walks on the beach, nice walk on the boardwalk, and there was a Ferris wheel, and it was, I suppose, your stereotypical holiday resort. The J1 in general was fairly good fun. Always helps to do with a big group of people, you know. It was like we nicknamed where we stayed, we nicknamed what we were doing was like Mini Limerick. I followed 3 of my friends down to the zipline amusement park, which was situated about 8 blocks away from where we were living on Flag Street, and spoke to the 2 managers, and we were hired on the spot. Yeah, the J1 was going really well. 6 weeks in, and on the Friday of my 6th week, Friday the 13th of July, started work like any normal day. You start work at 10 o'clock in the morning, finish at 4, and at approximately 3 o'clock that Friday I stepped backwards off the platform I was working on, my last couple of steps, and fell 60 feet onto the concrete below.
You know, it was my 40th birthday, and just a couple of friends and some cousins, we'd all been sitting around at Mem's for some food and some drinks. And then Anya, my sister, went out for a minute to take a call, and she came back in and said, "We need to go home." We were like, "Why?" And she said, "Because we've just had a phone call from America to say that Jared had fallen." So of course, when you have a few drinks now, you're thinking, yeah, he fell, okay, we'll probably fall ourselves later, but she said it's pretty serious.
So when I got wind of what had happened, I was doing the laundry, which was maybe a block up the road. I remember someone just coming in and saying, "Ger's after breaking his legs, Joe, on the zip line." And my first reaction was just like, "Ger's very unlucky." You see, I was just like, classic Ger, like Joe, he's going to be whinging now for the rest of the holiday, not knowing at all what had actually happened.
There's words like 5% chance of survival.
The nurses weren't clear about anything about his chances of getting through each day.
Just before I fell, I had 2 girls in front of me from Boston, and I was explaining them what to do and how to keep safe when you're ziplining. As I was explaining it to the 2 girls, I walked backwards, and as I said, I fell, landed on my feet. So I penciled down, landed on the concrete on my feet, and I was conscious after I fell. I actually tried to get up, which was in vain, really. I remember a bit of commotion around me and people kind of running around and screaming, and I remember my friend Dara Frawley speaking to me and telling me the day, the date, the time. The ambulance was called. As I said, I don't really remember when the ambulance was, how long it took the ambulance to get to me. I believe it was about 13 minutes.
I remember, I'm just trying to think back to going on the ambulance with Ger. Like, Ger was, I guess he was conscious, or he's coming in and out of consciousness. I just remember all the doctors trying to tell him it's going to be okay.
I remember, I suppose, not being able to catch my breath, was struggling to breathe an awful lot, and I could kind of feel nearly the life being snatched from me. My lungs had collapsed as I came into the A&E and into the cardiac arrest, and I guess that's still my last real memory, I suppose, of that Friday.
The first thing that we did is I rang the consulate, the emergency numbers that are on the website, looking for advice on what do we do when something like this happens. And after maybe 4 phone calls, of phone calls that weren't answered, it went to an answering machine. And I left a very panicked message saying, you know, we need to get my parents over to America. How do we do it? We need advice. The consulate rang back eventually. This was now probably going on to 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And they kind of talked through what the steps are, but they don't really help you to get them to America. What they can do is they can offer some advice when you're there.
From fall that height, I guess you can imagine I had quite a number of injuries. I shattered my right ankle, I had a compound fracture in my left leg, I shattered my entire pelvis, which separated from my spine, and I shattered my right elbow. I guess from a fall that height, those are to be expected, but the internal injuries, I suppose, were nearly worse. Both my lungs collapsed, I had kidney failure and liver failure. I had cardiac arrest 3 times, so I had to be resuscitated 3 times, where I died 3 times. I had a tracheotomy. I developed pneumonia, I developed a massive hematoma in my back, massive blood clots, massive internal bleeding. I was in a medically induced coma then for about 6 weeks. And I woke up after that period of time, lying in the bed, just not being able to move or speak.
So we had now got to Monday. Jared was undergoing some major surgery in the States. He showed some fluid in his stomach that was blood and stuff like that. So things were getting, worse every day.
So while I was in the induced coma, I guess I was awoken periodically throughout the 6 weeks for brief periods of time. I guess I just remember waking up and lying flat on my back and not being able to move or speak. I remember glancing to my left and Mum and Dad were there, my parents were there, and I think I mouthed, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And then I would drift off back to sleep.
The severity of what was going on really didn't hit me. When I went into kind of organising mode, I was trying to kind of make sure that Mum and Dad were okay, that they were okay to stay there, and that Jared was okay. They weren't going to be shipping him out in a coma. But I went then to the States for a week, over to them, and then I think it's then that the severity kind of hit.
I asked my mum about that numerous times, like, what was I like? And she said that, I was lying flat and I had external fixator on my left leg, and I was being held together with a spinal board and a lot of bandages, and I was hooked up to various machines. She said that I used to wake up every day, I guess, with the same fearful look in my eyes, and look of shock and look of being frightened, really. I suppose all in all, I had 26 surgical procedures done on my body, 13 of which was putting me back together again.
But even looking at the x-rays, like, they're frightening how,
Yeah.
like, he's literally putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, the amount of broken bones and fractures, and like, it's crazy.
Why me? Will I get through this? What's the outcome going to be? I guess I had a lot of questions at that time, and then not being able to ask or talk made that more difficult. I found it quite hard to accept, I guess, at that time, what was happening to me. I suppose the reassuring thing at that time even was they did tell me that it's not that I would never walk again, but that I would have a long road ahead of me and quite an extensive recovery ahead of me. My friends were fantastic. They all stayed in the hospital in different shifts for 24 hours to stay with me, and until my parents arrived over.
How many weeks were we there?
I haven't a clue.
He wouldn't have known that I was there at all, even for a day, so that was hard.
Look, I can't speak highly enough of how good everyone really was. They put on a lot of fundraisers for me over there to help out. They had a rugby sevens, beach sevens tournament, which they happened to win, and they got prize money for that and a little chest. The whole team got jerseys with Ger's Army written across it, and wore them for the tournament, which was a very nice touch. And the chest with the prize money had all gold dollars, gold coin dollars, which I guess for sentimental value I kept 13 of them. I eventually got the tracheotomy out of my throat, and I was able to speak. I started physiotherapy in the ICU. I used to have to, with my one good arm, slide across a wooden board from the bed onto a chair and sit in the chair for 2 hours a day, which was extremely difficult to do. And then on the 8th of September I actually moved to a rehabilitation centre in Wilmington in North Carolina to start the long road and long journey to get better. I was awake and I was alert, and I could feel the full extent of the pain that I was in physically. My head was a lot clearer because I was taking off morphine. My thoughts kind of ran away with themselves, they weren't clouded. I was quite determined to get better, but trying to realise what limitations I had, what limitations I'd be faced with physically. My brain was going faster than my body would let me. I eventually got to a stage where I was in a wheelchair and fit enough to fly back to Ireland. I flew back to Ireland on, I'll never forget it, the 11th of November, just in time for Christmas. Getting that news, I suppose, was a massive boost, especially to my parents, who spent 5.5 months with me over in America, in a strange country, eating strange food, meeting strange people. It was welcomed, absolutely.
So I had organised a bus. I had organised it with all his friends, so that we could all go and meet him off the bus in Dublin Airport. But the bus came and the bus was not really what we thought it was going to be. It was like an old kind of broken down kind of a 24-seater, maybe a little bit bigger. And we were there for when he came out through. So he came out through in a wheelchair, not knowing that we were all going to be there.
I arrived back the 11th of November 2012, and I basically had to learn how to walk again. I was in a wheelchair, as I said, when I arrived, and then as I progressed, I slowly got onto a Zimmer frame walker, and then eventually onto a cane, and then eventually onto a crutch.
But we couldn't believe how well Ger looked, like how much he'd recovered in that short period of time. It's actually scary how much he recovered in that short period of time.
And I had to go back to America then that summer to have another 3 corrective surgeries, I guess they were on my body, to take out some metal and to straighten me up a little bit. I had to go back into a wheelchair after my surgeries, and I found that quite difficult, having progressed so well. To nearly, I guess in my mind I was like, I'm starting all over again. As I was recovering in 2014, I made the decision to do a Masters in English in the University of Limerick, and luckily enough I was accepted, and I started my Masters in September of 2014. If I'm being honest, I needed something to do. I needed to keep my mind active. Since I fell that day, Friday the 13th, my whole life was consumed with recovery and physiotherapy and hospital appointments. I was going a bit mad in my head about that, and I needed to just focus my mind. So as tough as the Masters was, it was quite enjoyable. I had a purpose again, get back to some sense of normality really. After my corrective surgeries in 2014, I actually asked for the metal that they took out of my body. I always had the idea that I'd frame them eventually at some stage, and little did I know, my mum had actually planned for my birthday in May in 2015. She presented me with a frame with all the pieces together, spelling out the word "survived," which was a lovely gift to have, and very poignant as well. She's quite the artist. My mum sewed together quite a large patchwork quilt for me by hand, which I'm told is quite difficult to do, which I now have at home. I actually got a job there last September. I'm now working with children in care, and I guess I never really thought of doing a career or partaking in a career in that kind of service, but I suppose it's nearly vocational for me. I've been through quite a lot of trauma myself. My aim for these children that I work with is that you can come through trauma and you can find that normality and find that ability to survive in the world and become a member of society, I guess.
The place that he's in now is incredible with regards to how people don't know that Ger went through what he went through.
It was worrying that he was never going to get better, or this was what he was facing for the rest of his life. But, I mean, yeah, he was a miracle man.
In a way, it's quite a miracle that I made it through that night. Proud of myself for getting to where I am now. I'm quite a determined individual. When I put my mind to something, I'll do it. Not saying that it didn't have its ups and downs. Not saying that it was easy. It's far from easy. 6 years this year. It's July, 6 years since I fell, and all things considered, I've pretty normal life, pretty successful life, and you can get through anything really.